Hey everyone! Today I want to set the record straight on something that I got wrong in my most recent video, the 40-minute long Abrams guide. If you watched that all the way through, you might remember that at the end of it I talked about a tech in Deadlock that is called heavy melee cancel, which is this trick to where you can actually cancel your heavy melee charge by using an ability like Siphon Life, and that can be very useful to bait out parries, for example. I generally thought that this tech was pretty useful, and I also mentioned that the exact same thing can be done with items such as Fleetfoot, Colossus, Vampiric Burst, or even Unstoppable, I think it is. But the thing that I also mentioned is that if you buy Fleetfoot and whatnot specifically to do multiple heavy melee cancels in a row on Abrams when you already have an ability built into your kit, Siphon Life, that can do the same thing, I said that I definitely do not think it is worth to buy that. And the exact words that I used were that this is something that you can do if you feel like griefing a bit in lower elo lobbies. Now I am very happy that I used those exact words because that caused some people to become very upset enough to reach out to me on Discord to try and convince me that I was wrong, and calling it griefing is outright stupid. And you know what? They were right. After I seen some clips, after I messed around with the tech a bit in the sandbox mode, after a long back and forth conversation, I decided to say, hey, y'all seem very passionate about this, so, for the sake of argument, let me just play with Fleetfoot for about a week, specifically to try and really understand all the ins and outs of this heavy melee cancel tech and what you can do with it, and then come back to the conversation. The thing is though, is that I did not need a week to see the value. It took just a few days of practicing, and now I am on the complete other side of the fence where, yeah, I believe that Fleetfoot in a lot of cases is better than Kinetic Dash on Abrams, specifically because of this tech. Because not only does this heavy melee cancel give you more mobility, far more mobility than an extra charge of stamina would give you, which is what you would get with Kinetic Dash, but if you get good enough with it, it also allows you to make some absolutely disgusting plays on the opponents, because you essentially have two ways of gaining zipline-like speed to close the gap and then use your stun on Abrams afterwards. Looks pretty sick, right? And before we get into the ins and outs of how to do all these things and the whatnots, I just want to clarify a few things on whether this is considered an exploit or not, or whether it's considered intentional, because, you know, it is still a very early alpha game, and just exploiting every bug just to try and get a couple more wins is of course not really the goal here. So here is what we know, what the developers have said about it, and the stuff that we also don't know. So not too long ago, when Ranked was added, the patch of the 10th of October, so a month ago now, that patch also removed this tech. It removed the heavy melee cancel. The heavy melee cancels have been in the game since forever, since as long as I know, and they were removed a month ago, without mentioning it in the patch notes. Then, when the players asked about this in the Discord and on the forums, the developers decided to intentionally patch it back into the game just one day later. And Yoshi, one of the lead developers on the game, I believe, explicitly mentioned in the Discord that the melee stuff is fixed now. Then, when the players took it to the forums to ask if this stuff is intentional or whether it's an exploit, the only reply that was given was again that it has been restored. And since that update, since they patched it back in, no update afterwards has taken it back out. So, my take on this is that the developers probably do not know yet whether they want to keep this mechanic in the game in the long term. They don't know if it's too strong, they don't know the extent of what you can do with it just yet, but for now, they want to have it in there just so they can see what it will do to the game. Now, I was waiting to see if yesterday's patch would maybe change this in one way or another. That is why I'm posting about it now and not a few days ago. But no, everything seems to be unchanged still, so yeah, for now, I'm going to show you how to do this, and then if the developers over at Valve decide that, hey, maybe this is not okay, at least not in its current form, well, then I'm sure the developers can just as easily patch the heavy melee cancel back out of the game. So, heavy melee canceling. How do you do it? Well, it is very simple actually, the name kind of gives it away. All you have to do is perform a heavy melee, and then right at the end of your launch, before you come to a full stop, use any of these items or any of these abilities on these heroes, and you will cancel the melee, which is again useful for baiting out a parry because you can use a melee again a bit faster, but this is also useful for preserving the momentum of that melee. Now this stack is pretty useful, but what a lot of people don't know is that this becomes much more effective, much stronger with the item melee charge, since that adds 40% charge distance, which means that you simply get more momentum during the launch. And so logically, if you cancel it, it also gives you more speed. And so if we look at Abrams, a character that typically already buys melee charge as an item and already has a built-in ability that is already able to cancel the heavy melee animation, well, he can pretty much do this for free. You just need one item and you too can zoom around the map like this. But then, on top of that, what Abrams could do as well is buy Fleetfoot, which is just another 1250 item. And now you have 2 charges of this heavy melee cancel thing, both running on an independent cooldown, which means you can either do 2 of them back to back to move super fast across the map at 0 stamina cost, or you could spread them out to do these on a give or take 10-second cooldown. Again, at 0 stamina bars, because yes, even though the higher you do this from, the more effective it technically is, since you'll have more airtime, you can actually perform these moves with 0 stamina as well, so long as you get the timing right and aim a little bit up as you do the melee. I got that tip from a guy named Goober, who's also been doing this stuff for a while already, and he too has been having a lot of success with it. Now what this obviously allows you to do is to just be everywhere just a bit faster. And that makes your presence on the map that much stronger. It allows you to split push lanes unlike anyone else, which is mainly how I've been using it. I just walk up into any of the side lanes. If they send one person, well, usually Abrams can take the 1v1, and if they send multiple, I am just out of there. And that then takes a lot of pressure away from the other lanes and from the other teammates, who are then usually able to push their respective lanes much easier. It just puts a lot of pressure on the map. You can also do this to more easily double soak waves. This is a thing that is not new, of course. Other heroes have been doing this since the game came out. Basically, you just have 5 teammates run it down on one side of the map and then have one hero clear 2 waves by himself. Usually this is a high mobility hero that is also a bit more squishy, so yeah, those heroes are a bit easier to gank. But now Abrams can do it, the tankiest hero in the game. Again, this tech can also be used to make plays that the enemies don't really expect yet. I mean, if more players started using this, if more players started doing this, then players would probably be more ready for it and expect it and play a bit different. But as of now, even at the higher ranks, this isn't something that is widely explored yet, and players often don't see this type of stuff coming, which just means there's a lot of free kills for you. So to round out this video now, let's talk a bit about whether or not this should actually stay in the game, because I believe it's an unintentional feature. It's been a bit controversial, it feels pretty strong, but is it too strong? And my answer to that is, yeah, I think currently it is a bit too strong for it to stay in the game as it is. But I also don't want this to go away completely, because there is a level of skill involved with it too. In a lot of ways, timing a heavy melee cancel is much like doing a dash jump. It is something that isn't all that difficult to do, but it can be messed up mid-combat. And on the other side, you know, the mind games that you can do with cancelling out your heavy melee just to bait a parry, I think that brings much more depth to the melee combat. Almost like a fighting game, and I don't really want to see that go away either. I'm always a big advocate for keeping unintentional things in the game so long as it requires skill and it adds depth at the higher levels of play. But again, I do believe it needs some tweaks and it needs to be toned down a little bit. The biggest reason why I think it feels so oppressive right now is because of the speed boost that you get when you use this in combination with the item melee charge. You know, a normal heavy melee cancel gives you a good amount of momentum, something that isn't broken, something that feels fair, something that can give you a bit of an edge, but something that can also be properly played around. With charge melee though, the speed that you get simply becomes kind of unfair. The distance you can cross with this, it just becomes ridiculous, honestly. And I think that this is the only part of it that isn't really balanced, because this is what allows you to engage from a ridiculously far distance. It allows you to escape from situations that no one else should be able to escape from, unless you're maybe like a Lash with superior stamina and blink at the same time. I think the crux of the issue is just melee charge, especially on characters that would play melee charge anyway. But yeah, that was the video. Those are my thoughts. That is heavy melee cancelling for you. If you're looking for some more content that covers everything on the cutting edge of movement tech, that is like maybe a bug, maybe an exploit, but maybe also staying in the game, then I'd recommend going to Noct Gaming. Noct is, from what I gathered, mostly a Lash player that is super passionate about movement in Deadlock. I'm not sure if he's the one that discovered all this stuff, but he has videos of this dating back weeks ago, if not months ago at this point. And he's still relatively small, so hey, go give him a subscribe, watch his most recent videos, and you'll see what I mean. There's a lot to pick up there when it comes to movement. Anyway, that was all I gotta share for now. Thank you all so much for watching, and you will see me again very soon. Just not too soon, because I'm still just playing Deadlock every day. Bye.